Everyone, my name is Adam Engels. I am the lead artist for Black Mesa, and I'm doing a quick tutorial video for compiling very simple models. If you're new to getting assets into Source in terms of models, then this is going to be a good place to start, and I recommend you start with something like a box and a simple texture, get it into the game, and then you can add your more complex models later to sort of rule out any factors that might be contributing to why it's not getting into the game properly. But before we go get started here, I wanted to show you a couple of things that I use. The first one is direct folders. It's more or less a favorite system for Windows Explorer, so that if I middle click here, uh, I have all these locations that I can quickly navigate to, which Windows has, but this one works a little bit better because you can just middle click or double right click and it will pop up. It also has a Recents tab. So you can see I was doing some tests earlier and getting this ready to go for this tutorial, and it saved all those locations, which is really important, especially when you're working in the source engine, because there's just so many different directories and they're all very similar that having this quick go-to recent folder is just awesome. And the other really awesome thing that it does is if you have an actually, let me bounce back out to Explorer real quick. If I open, let's say, my C drive, and then I go into Photoshop and I hit the open queue, what I can do is then click the Explorer button, and of course it doesn't work because I'm trying to show you guys, and click the Explorer window. Let's maybe navigate out to here. Click the Explorer window. There we go. Normally that happens every time, I swear. But I can click out to there, and it will snap you to wherever your Explorer windows are open to. And that's really, really nice, especially if you have a bunch of folders open. You can just quickly bounce around, and it will work in the open dialog and also the save dialog, so that you can quickly get to places, and it will probably save you time. There's a free version and a paid version. I haven't put the paid version on this computer yet, but I recommend that you guys do if you can spare the money. It's just going to save you hours of time. Get my little cheat sheet up on my other monitor. The other thing I want to talk about is the Photoshop VTF plugin. If you're using Photoshop and you're using the 32-bit version, you can save VTFs directly out of Photoshop. And VTF is the texture format that the source engine uses. So rather than having to use a third-party program like VTF Edit, you can save your files directly out of Photoshop. And if you're not using Photoshop, you will have to use VTF Edit. We should do a tutorial on that soon because there's a lot of features in that you can use to create textures and VMTs. There's also, you'll need a SMD exporter for whatever 3D package you're using, whether it's Blender, Maya. I think XSI still has one, and then I'm going to be using 3D Studio Max today. We're also going to package up some example QCs, so that if you're a little more intermediate, if you want to steal QCs that we use to create more complex props, you can do that and just change the directories what the model name's going to be and where it's going, and where your SMDs are, and then you can put your own assets into. I also have a plugin in 3D Studio Max that lets me see VTFs inside of 3D Studio Max, so that I can actually load the valve textures directly into 3D Studio Max, and it's really helpful. And links to all this stuff will be in the description so that you guys can check it out and download them for yourself. So I will now get right to it and create a box. Start off simple, and we'll just make it 32 by 32 by 32. And the cool thing about 3D Studio Max, if you create in the top viewport, it will actually create your pivot on the bottom at the grid, and this is how you want it if you're going to be creating an asset for placement in the game. Because if you're a level designer and you're pulling props in, it's really helpful to have that gizmo at the bottom so that you can snap it to the grid or snap it to the ground. And I'll go ahead and name this test 02 because I did a test 01 warming up for this. And now I need a texture for this. So I'll go out, I'm going to save this as a VTF because I have that VTF plugin. And I'm going to save it inside of props Black Mesa. You can save these in whatever material folder you want, but it's got to be in your game directory, which is going to be your Steam directory. I'm working on the development branch, so it's a little different. It'll be your Steam directory, Common, Black Mesa, BMS, Materials, Models. And right into props Black Mesa, and this is going to be test 02. Because like I said, I was fooling around a while ago. And then I can just grab a template, and it's just going to be a compressed texture, which is just a basic diffuse map image, and go to OK. So now I have my texture saved in the directory, so that's one step I don't have to do down the line. If I pop back over to 3D Studio Max, it's really important that I remember that texture name, because not only do I have to find it, but the texture name is what Source is going to use to link the model to the texture. So test 02, and I'm going to make it renderable on the scene and drag it onto the box, and there it is. And I'll cover more on why this name is important when we get to the material part of it. But for now, I have my box with my texture on it. I'll create a collision mesh by duplicating it and scaling it up. And I'm going to make it fairly big so that I can tell it's mine. If you create just a box and send it to the compiler, it will create a box for you, because it's very simple. I can say, okay, I can see that this is a box, and I'm going to create a box collision around it. But if you get a more complex model down the line, a box around that is not going to be very helpful. It's not going to be an accurate collision mesh. So I'm just going to put this in here so that I can see that we do in fact have a collision mesh that is made by us. And I'll name it call. And the other thing I'm going to do is convert it to an editable poly and make it a single smoothing group. I will add more on this in a specific tutorial for creating more complex collision. For now, I just want to get one out to show you the compile process. So I will now export the collision from Max. This is the SMD exporter I was talking about earlier, which I'll have linked in the description. And I will put it into props Black Mesa. This is the source folder. This isn't actually inside of the Black Mesa game. This is where I store all of my source files. So you guys can put these SMDs literally wherever you want. As long as the QC and the SMDs are in the same directory, it'll be able to find them. So if you want to put these on your C drive, or if you want to put them on another drive, that's fine. Do not save them into the Steam directory, because if you delete Black Mesa from your hard drive, you're going to lose all your source files as well. It's going to delete all those folders. So make sure you save them somewhere not in your source directory. Okay, so I'm just going to create a folder called test02. It should pop right next to that one. And then this is going to be test02 collision. A lot of people call them hulls. There's a lot of different names, but it doesn't matter as long as you know that this is your collision, so you can point to it later and save. So now this is going to be the exporter, and it's got a couple of options. If you're doing like a weapon animation and you just need that animation, the sequence is what's going to track all the bone rotations and actually export the animation. It's not going to export the model. Reference is the actual model itself, the shape, the polygons. What you see in game is the reference. So this is just a simple box, so we're definitely going to use reference. And go to OK, and it's going to say I exported all this stuff. And then go to OK. So now we're done with the collision mesh, and I'll hide it. And I'll do pretty much the same thing for the actual model itself. Export selected, and this is just going to be test02. And yeah, save. Same thing, export as a reference. It's not an animation. So now I can actually create my QC, which it's like I said, we'll be packaging up some QC so that you can just sort of copy and paste. But if you want to sort of learn the process, we also created a QC generator so that you can manually create QCs without having to type out every little letter. So this is going to be test02 QC, and it's going to have the model name. Whoops, that is not what I wanted right now. So you go away, add a command. I did it again. I did it a third time. There we go. There we go. All right, took a second, but we're there. You can see why this is confusing. I've been doing this for years, and I still don't know what's going on. So this is going to be the MDL of the model that the game loads. And when you create an MDL, it'll create a bunch of associated files and stuff too, and we'll talk about that later. But for now, I'm just going to say this is going to go into props _ Black Mesa / test02. And I might as well add the .mdl. Props Black Mesa test02, yeah. So that's going to be my actual model name that I load in Hammer. And then the model itself needs to have, this is the SMD I just exported, so I'm going to call it again test02, and then just test02.smd. And you can see I don't have props Black Mesa right here because the SMD is going to be stored right where the QC is. So it's going to say, okay, I'm test02 QC. Where's this SMD? Oh, it's right in the folder with me. Grab it and compile it into this test02. So I'm going to add a collision model. And just like we saved it, test02 _ call.smd. And then I'm going to add a sequence, and this is just more or less crossing your T's and dotting your I's. This isn't an animated model, but a sequence is what calls the animation. But because there is no animation, I'm just going to again point to test02.smd, and it's going to loop at 30 frames per second because, again, no animation on it. Sequence, this is in fact going to be a static prop, so I'll add that line. And CD materials, this is where the material is saved. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I know where this is being saved. So Black Mesa materials models, again, this is going to be your Steam directory. Mine's a little bit different. Props Black Mesa. And then you only need this part of it. There we go. So it's a material that is inside of models and inside of props Black Mesa. So this is how it's going to find the texture. And I think that's all oh no, I want to add surface prop. If you click the question mark for surface prop, it will give you a little tooltip, and then if I actually click it, it will bring us to the Valve material list. So you can just grab one of these. If you want it to be mud or wood or cardboard. So I'm going to find glass because it's really recognizable. So if I do a video down the line and shoot it, it will actually make the glass sound. And now I think that's everything that I wanted. Scale, I'll pop that in. This is only used if you want to actually scale your prop. You can't scale it in real time, like in the Hammer editor, but if you have a prop and it's just a little bit too small, rather than remodeling it or scaling it in your model program, you can scale it inside of the QC. It's kind of a quick and dirty fix. If you know that this prop is going to be used all over the place, it's probably smarter to actually fix the model. And then up axis is for programs like Maya, which use the y-axis as their up axis. 3D Studio Max uses the z as their up axis. So I'm going to go ahead and just clear those out real quick. So here's my my QC on the right. There's where the MDL is going. There's the SMD. There's the collision SMD. the sequence. It is a static prop. It's not moving. It's not a physics prop. Its material is in models Black Mesa, and its surface property is glass. So now I will download this, and I will save it to recent Testo2, which should be in props Black Mesa, and it is, and Testo2 QC. Save. Alrighty, so now we have a QC, we have exported SMDs from our 3D modeling package, and now we can actually compile the prop into the game. We also have our texture saved where it needs to be inside of props Black Mesa. So there it is right there, Testo2. So I will load the location where I saved my QC to, which is going to be Steam directory, or sorry, it's going to be somewhere on your computer. Just make sure it's all in the same spot. This is the side that it doesn't matter where it goes as long as they're all together. So there's my QC, and there's the things that I'm actually going to load. So inside of the description, there's a link to Compile.bat. And what this Compile.bat is going to do, if I can show you, is it's a small program, or sorry, a small script that's going to go out and drop this QC into Studio MDL, which will create the prop and actually put it into the game. So you're going to have to replace this with your local game directory, which will be, you know, if it's on your C drive, program files, Steam, Common, Black Mesa, bin, studiomdl.exe, and then the exact same thing for the dash game over here, only you're going to your Common, Black Mesa, BMS, and that's it. So quickly replace these things, and you'll be ready to compile just by defining this as your compile program. So I have a QC. How do I want to open them? Open with, choose default program, and keep using Compile.bat because I already have this defined. Use this for all QCs. Yes, keep using it, and it's going to open it and run. We didn't get any errors, which is good. You'll always get this warning for P4lib because that's a plugin that Valve uses that we don't use unless you're using Perforce. So you can see where it creates all the files that's needed for the MDL, and it completed Testo2 QC. And I can go ahead and hit the button to continue. So now my model's compiled. I could load it into Hammer and start placing it places, but it's a little quicker if you use, I'm going to go back out to my toolkit, HLMV, or Half-Life Model Viewer. So now I load, and this is in props Black Mesa. So BMS bottles props Black Mesa, and it's going to be Testo2, unless I saved it wrong, because I don't see it. Oop. Edit. Forgot the S. Save it. So this is what I downloaded from our QC generator. Right here, you can see all this stuff, and I forgot the S on props Black Mesa. So it went ahead and it created a whole nother folder called prop Black Mesa. All right, we won't focus on that mistake. We'll just recompile it. So now all I got to do, because I defined this as the default program, is double-click it. It's going to recreate the model, hopefully in the right directory this time. Load model. Oops. There it is, Testo2 MDL. So I'll double-click that. And you can see our models in game, and it has a pink checkerboard. Now, believe it or not, I meant to do this because I wanted to show how to get the texture to display properly. But if I click physics, you can see that our collision model actually came in as well because it's bigger. It's the one we actually created inside of our 3D modeling program. So why isn't the texture showing up? And that's because, just like I was saying earlier, in your 3D package, to make sure you note the name of the texture applied, we have to actually create a file that tells the source engine where the material is, or sorry, where the texture is. So you can see with my previous test I have a VMT, and I'll go ahead and load up the tarp crate as well. And here's your VMT, and it's a vertex lit generic texture. Its base map, or its diffuse map, is tarp crate D. Its bump map is tarp crate N. It's a model, surface property of wood, no culling, which means the polygons are drawn two-sided, and then a bunch of environment map settings. So we don't need all of these. I'm just going to make the diffuse map show for right now. So I will go ahead and copy and paste this tarp crate. And now you can see it's above Testo 2. So now if I edit this, I'm going to delete everything but my diffuse map, which is the base texture. Props Black Mesa, Test 02. Actually, let me undo that real quick. I'm going to leave surface property in there. And we have this as glass. Test 02. Props Black Mesa. And it's a vertex lit generic. So all models have to be vertex lit generic. It's how they're shaded inside of the game. So vertex lit generic, base texture, and surface property save. So now because what happens is the 3D package has a name, Testo 2, for the material. That gets put onto the model gets compiled, and then the model looks for testo2.vmt. So now that the model is looking for it and will find it, it should be able to load in that texture. If I go to HLMV and go to refresh, and there's our actual texture. So in the next one, I'll show how to actually hook up normal maps and specular maps so that you can have something a little shinier, but I wanted to keep it as simple as possible because you can see how complex this process is. Once you create a couple, though, and once you understand what each section is plugging into, it becomes a little easier. Let me look through my little cheat sheet and see if I forgot to talk about anything. Export and create QC and compile. Okay, good. The one thing I'll cover real quick, I'm going to do another tutorial on complex collision meshes, but for now, just keep in the back of your mind that you can't have concave surfaces in your collision model. So if I move this vertice up, if I can draw a line from this vertice to this vertice and there's a gap between it, that's a concave model, and it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to use that as a collision mesh. If I grab this vertice and pull it up, you can see no matter which way I look at the surface, I can never draw a line and get air in the model. This is what's called convex. So this is good. This one's going to work, but this one's not. Whoops. So a lot of times you got to get creative when you create your collision models. So I would actually have to go in, create another mesh, and weld vertices and do a bunch of stuff. Like I said, I'll cover that in another tutorial, but I just wanted to mention that so that you're aware of it right now, and we'll go in more in depth later. But I hope that wasn't too confusing. I made a couple of mistakes. Ask us any questions, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. The best way to get a hold of us is on our public forums. But we'll also be scouring the YouTube comments and all that stuff too. But head over to the forums if you got questions, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging out.